Honestly, this story sounds like it should be straight from a movie. We now know about the exact moment that Trump had his oh shit realization and decided to back down from the tariffs. We also know the exact reason why Trump decided to back down, and two things can be true at once. Yes, Trump brazenly manipulated the market and allowed his friends and allies to get ahead before reversing course, but also, he was scared. He was scared shitless because a few other countries came together in a clever way and essentially twisted Trump's arm so hard that he was about to barrel roll. Genuinely, Trump thought he was gaining leverage over every single country by acting like a madman or whatever the hell the theory was, but the other countries had a reverse Uno card and gained leverage over him. I'm going to break down how Canada's Mark Carney basically pulled a stunt out of like a James Bond movie. But first, let's start with this Fox News clip. This is a top US trade representative downplaying how much families are going to have to pay.
Companies.
But in the meantime, they say it's going to cost the American household $4,800. What do you say to those households?
Well, first of all, I would say with respect to those projections, a lot of those are Wall Street analysts who have a lot to lose themselves. In the first term, we put a lot of tariffs on China, and we saw similar predictions. Those ended up being wrong. Inflation went down. I think the economic fundamentals of our country are still very, very good. And while there may be an adjustment, I think we're going to be on a good path, and I don't think we're going to see that level of increase in household expenses.
Yeah, I know.
In Trump's first term, he put a 10 to 20% tariff on China. That is way different than a 10% tariff on the world, except for Russia and North Korea, and then a 145% tariff on China. By the way, that's probably going to go up today. If you're watching this video a few hours later, there's a chance that the tariffs have gone up even more. They continue to go up. But also, I love how this dude implies that the Wall Street analysts are just lying because they have a lot to lose themselves. Listen, he says,
Wall Street analysts who have a lot to lose themselves.
No, dude. Everybody has a lot to lose. I mean, yes, there are a lot of flaws with the American economy and healthcare, but we do have a lot to lose with these tariffs. If prices begin to skyrocket and we go into a recession, we're losing everything we've built thus far. Again, the Biden economy was far from perfect. There is a lot of wealth disparity in America that we need to fix ASAP, but that doesn't mean that everything we've built up to this point should be erased through tariffs and terrible trade policy. But I do want to go over to Mark Carney's pretty brilliant checkmate move. It's actually really funny because it kind of reminds me of like Breaking Bad. You know that Mark Carney was the head of the Bank of England and the head of the Bank of Canada, right? So he's using his financial skills and know-how to pull a trick on Trump in the same way that Walter White had these chemistry skills and then he used it later in his life to cook meth, I guess. So when Trump announced his massive tariff regime, it was 125% on China, 25% on Canada, and then these Liberation Day tariffs across the world. And he removed the Liberation Day tariffs, but the Canada tariffs are still on, China tariffs are still on, and there's still a 10% tariff across the board. But Trump was expecting everyone to flinch, but Canada didn't, China didn't, most countries did not flinch. In fact, when it comes to Canada, they played it so cool that Mark Carney was able to get Trump to drop the tariffs. A lot of the credit here goes to Mark Carney and a few key other countries like Japan, and the bloc of the EU also helped a lot. So again, Canada decided to play it cool. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, who recently replaced Justin Trudeau and who's up for election soon, was quietly doing something pretty clever. He was organizing the financial equivalent of a firing squad. Again, it's like out of a movie. It's like when Matt Damon in Good Will Hunting is just so smart that he can outwit anybody. And I'm not saying that Mark Carney is a genius or whatever like that character, but I'm just saying that Mark Carney used his financial know-how to come up with a quick scheming plot to push Trump down. So Carney's checkmate, how Canada's quiet bond play forced Trump to drop tariffs. Let's talk about the moment Trump blinked. It wasn't loud, it wasn't a tweet storm or a rally rant. When the tariff threats had the world on edge, a bunch of tariffs on China and Canada, a global trade war, Trump softened. A pause, he called it, a complete turnaround from the chest thumping of the past week. And the reason, Mark Carney and a slow, deliberate financial maneuver that most people didn't even notice, and most people still don't notice. The coordinated treasury bond slow bleed. Slowly bleeding our treasury, which, listen, I don't want the American economy to do poorly, but when Trump is trying to gain leverage over every other country, I honestly do not blame Canada for trying to twist his arm back. In fact, I'm glad that they did and got him to drop it. And then here's what Trump posted. Based on the lack of respect that China has shown to the world's markets, I am hereby raising the tariffs to this point. Then he claims we're doing 90% Liberation Day tariffs. And here's what Trump said after he removed the tariffs.
He started the morning saying, be cool. And just a few hours later, there was a pause put in on the tariffs. Can you walk us through your thinking about why you decided to put a 90-day pause?
Well, you're already presupposing that Trump was thinking in any way. And it's kind of funny that Trump tweeted out, be cool. And then a few hours later, he reversed his policy, which kind of is a sign of panic.
I decided to put a 90-day pause.
Well, I thought that people were jumping a little bit out of line. They were getting yippy, you know? They were getting a little bit yippy, a little bit afraid, unlike these champions, because we have a big job to do. No other president would have done what I did. No other president. I know.
No other president would have almost started a global trade war and then reversed policy last minute because you panicked, all while getting zero concessions and actually leaving a lot of tariffs in place. The market hasn't climbed to where we left it. In fact, it's actually still dropped quite a bit. And always remember, a lot of tariffs are still in place right now, 10% across the board. But this is where it gets interesting. Rewind a bit. While Trump was gearing up his trade war machine, Carney, Canada's prime minister, wasn't just sitting in Ottawa twiddling his thumbs. He'd been quietly increasing Canada's holdings of U.S. Treasury bonds. Over $350 billion worth by early 2025, part of the $8.53 trillion foreign countries hold in U.S. debt. On the surface, it looked like a safe play, a hedge against economic chaos. But it wasn't defense, it was a loaded gun. Mark Carney was loading up on American bonds, treasury bonds, so he could unload them at a key time. And this Substack post coming from Dean Blundell then continues, Carney didn't stop there. He took his case to Europe, not just for photo ops, but for closed-door meetings with EU's heavy hitters. Germany, France, the Netherlands, Japan was in the room too, listening closely. The pitch was simple. If Trump went too far with tariffs, Canada wouldn't just retaliate with duties on American cars or steel, it would start offloading the treasury bonds. Not a fire sale, nothing so crude, but a slow, steady bleed. A signal to the markets that the US dollar's perch wasn't so secure. And today, we saw markets dumping the dollar in Asia early Friday. Currencies within the foreign exchange crashing. Going back to this article, Carney didn't stop there. He took his case to Europe. It was a slow, steady bleed. This says Canada's PM got an agreement with UK and France to dump American bonds if the tariffs continued. He then warned Trump on their call that the US dollar would drop like a brick. Trump pauses tariffs today after watching the bond market bleed last night. And, you know, that's a win for Canada. That is a win for the entire world that wanted Trump to chill the hell out. So essentially, to wrap things up, Mark Carney got a bunch of countries together and had a metaphorical loaded gun pointed at the US. And if Trump took things one step further, they were going to crash all markets and it would disproportionately hurt the US, while other countries aren't as affected, which is honestly kind of a genius strategy. And that's why I said it's like out of a movie. It's like Mark Carney had this plot based off of his years of financial work, and I think it's pretty cool. I mean, beyond it being cool, it was also necessary. We need any sort of checks on Trump that we can find right now, whether it's the Supreme Court saying he has to return an immigrant, whether it's a lower circuit court saying that he's got to stop doing X or Y, or whether it's other leaders, teaming up to stop him, or whether it's Democrats calling out his lies and his market manipulation. We will stay on his ass every single day. And if you want to help grow this channel and beat some of the biggest MAGA media movers, all you have to do is scroll down, subscribe, hit the like button. I truly do appreciate everybody who watches my videos. It means more than you know. Every single time you click on my videos and you spend these 10 minutes with me, it's always great. So thank you so much. Let's continue growing, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.